athlete builder at it again. Something must be in the water out in Virginia Beach. Shout out to Dan Braun. We had Chipper Anderson on the other day. Today we have Emily Throckmorton. She's out of Virginia Beach as well. And Dan, again, shout out because he introduced us to Emily and her husband Lee. So we're going to have two separate episodes. We're starting off with the heavy hitter Emily first, and then poor Lee will be hitting cleanup after her. So we're going to get by with this lady who's, what I have written down here in my notes is she is a doer. And it looks like her background was in CrossFit at first, but it's quickly evolved into a number of things. And if you look up her bio, my goodness, there's almost 3 dozen different certifications listed. So, like me, she's a nerd, right? But also likes to be athletic and get after it. What's really cool about today's episode, right from the get-go, is our guest has a nice specialty, not only just training, well, I would say regular people, but also, adaptive athletes. So anyone that's been having, like, maybe had an amputation, or it could be something else. Maybe they had another challenge from, PTSD or whatever. But she has a wide range of dealing with average Joes like we do, sports performance and athletes in that realm, but also adaptive. So we're going to cover a lot of things today. Before we even get into it, Emily, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Very excited for this episode. And of course, Lee has to go next. He can't go first.
Right.
He's my right-hand man in a lot of these things. So I feel very blessed to have his support. And like you said, all those other guys that also were part of your podcast, they are huge supportive of ours, and they're also a good friend of ours. So thank you guys so much.
It takes a village, right? And it's a lot easier when you surround yourself with great people. One of our 6 components with Athlete Builder is teammates, and no one gets there alone. If you have a great partner like your husband, or you have other teammates in the strength and conditioning world around, it just makes everything so much easier.
Absolutely.
Right from the get go, what's your best Fran time?
My best what?
Fran
Oh,
time.
Fran time. Oh my goodness. One of my favorite workouts. I feel like I did this at my level 1 certification back in the day. This would have been 2016. And I honestly can't remember. I have to look it up, but I do know that I suffered a great deal, which I'm very good at. I can suffer for a very long time. I'm kind of known around here for not being like the fastest or, the fittest or whatever, but I am known for being able to suffer the longest, which I will take that. But I think my Fran time, I mean, gotta be under 5 minutes is always the goal. But I do remember that I get the Fran lung. But I definitely need to redo it here shortly just so I can have a better answer for you.
That's all right.
But those workouts are so much fun, and they're such a great way to test your fitness and to get a baseline
Mm-hmm.
workout, right?
Yep.
To be like, am I getting fitter, faster, stronger, all the things? So it's on my list now that you put that in my head.
Our test when we have new CrossFit athletes into our gym, it's Helen. It's because it's a little bit longer than Fran and incorporates, 3 different movements. And so for us, we say, hey, if you average 3 days a week and you come and say, hey, Jim, I tried hard because integrity is one of the core values. I tried hard and I average at least 3 days a week. And we retest you 3 months later and your Helen time is worse or your performance is worse. We say, you know what? You can have all your money back.
Wow.
We can say that because we're undefeated.
That's yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there, right? Because it's not just the workout. What are we doing the other 23 hours of the day that,
There is.
it's hard to point fingers at you and be like, "Wow, you're not helping me get fitter, faster, stronger." But really, I'm a big component of, integrity to be
Right.
like, "Okay, this is on me, right? What am I doing outside of the gym that made me not perform better?"
Sure.
But I really like that philosophy though, where you test your athletes in that capacity.
There is a little, from this owner standpoint, there is a level of risk. Like you can guess that they could screw around eating pizza and drink beer all the time and still come 3 days a week and say, "Hey, ha, Jim, I'm not healthier. I lost."
Mhm.
But we haven't had that yet. And so far, most people have just been above board. So, it's worked out. How about Fight Gone Bad? It's one of my favorite CrossFit workouts.
Ooh, that's a great workout as well. You're throwing out all the staples.
Right?
Um, well, you know what's funny? So back in the day, when I first started in the CrossFit space, my husband had a gym. I was his head coach, and we would always write down people's names, your scores, and we loved it because it was so competitive. You could be like, wow, Johnny got 150 reps for Fight Gone Bad for today, and I'm going to try to get 170, right? So it was this constant push. Now, fast forward to 2025, I don't write anybody's name on the board. We don't look at their times or their reps. And it's such a different, there's two ways to look at that. Yes, we love that competitive standpoint, back in the day when we would write everybody's times down, and I think that that's such a healthy way to push each other. But fast forward to today, when I have the general pop that I'm working with, sometimes it's the fact of them showing up that's the biggest part of their success for the day. Or maybe some of them don't even count their reps when they're doing the workout. Maybe they're just trying to get through it, right? So there's a lot to unpack there. And I think having the ability to, with our business now and how we've kind of changed our gym model is, we're happy that you did the workout. We're happy you pushed yourself. Maybe you went 5 pounds heavier than you did last time, but I kind of miss that competitive side of back in the day. But right now where we are, we just have a lot of fun with, if it's not fun for the athlete, they're not going to come back, right? So that's kind of my measure of success, or measure of data that we have for our athletes, is like, are they continuously coming back? Are they having fun? And that seems to work for us right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number four on our core values is enjoyment.
Yeah.
So, as if you go through like Atomic Habits with James Clear, the fourth component with him is it satisfying? And there are different metrics for performance. And you're right, you could just keep the score, right? And that's a legit metric.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you come in, let's say maybe you competed over the weekend. So coming in today to do Fight Gone Bad, you're not going to compete and try to push.
Correct.
You're just going to move to try to flush out some acids. So you might just be limping through at 50% exertion level, because that's what your training calls for today. And I think as CrossFit got started, 15 plus years ago, when it kind of like took off, everybody was about the whiteboard and putting your times up there and pushing. And people start to realize, and hey, for some people that can be deflating, right? Versus, energizing. And so the artwork of the coaching comes in, like how can the coach still connect with the athletes with their different whys, those that want to compete and push, or those that are doing it for a different reason altogether, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really enjoy the scaling, modifying, adapting, whether that is, progression, which, we're trying to push that competitive athlete a little bit more, right? And this goes into making a great coach. This is something that I truly love, but I love a coach that can come into a group of people and they can immediately know how they're going to adapt for every single person that's in there, modify for each person, say, hey, I know what's going on with that person or this person, and you can make it a fun, enjoyable, safe workout for everybody in the room. Not just like, hey, here's the workout, best of luck, have fun. What makes you a great coach is that you can handle all sorts of different impairments or athleticism or injury that comes into your facility. And I enjoy that personally. And when back in the day when we had our CrossFit affiliate, it was one workout for the whole day. For every single athlete that came in, it was the exact same. Coming from somebody who coached way too many classes a day, way too many, you would get so burned out by saying the same workout to every single group.
Sure.
And so now with my gym is I do more like customized, personalized programming for each class that comes through. Because I know who they're signing up ahead of time. I know who's going to be in class. Maybe they haven't been in a couple of days. I know what we did last time with them, and I can kind of like on the fly just change the workout to what I want them to do for the day to kind of fit their needs. And that's so much fun from a programming standpoint too. You're not stuck doing the same AMRAP or EMOM or, this movement, that movement. It gives you freedom as a coach to explore and customize that so that they can walk away being like, wow, I really felt that was just for me.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can still do that in a group setting. You can still make somebody feel like it is just for them, but you're also working with 9 other athletes.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting point. And It could be challenging. That's where the true artwork of the coaching comes in. And I would say it's a difference between someone who's an instructor who simply just says, here's what we're doing, here's the movements, be safe, versus someone who's coaching where you have to wear all the hats, all the psychological hats, the sympathize, being sympathetic, or you're the bartender listening to their aches or they're whining about their spouse, whatever.
A lot of that.
A lot of times, what's best for the athlete can be something that's really, if they're training's pretty boring because you're doing a lot of the same things, hitting weaknesses, and you're going to keep maxing out the same training until they plateau, and that's typically when you change. In the CrossFit world, most times the stimulus is changing daily.
Hmm.
You might have a strength cycle or an Olympic cycle to start off your day, but then each conditioning piece is going to be different than the day prior. So there's that variety which people love, but in my opinion, gets significantly away from training. If you're just training to be the best version of yourselves, you'll stick with the similar stimulus until you adapt, and or until you quit adapting, and then once you quit, then you would change it. Then it circles back to that enjoyment piece. Man, I'm doing the same thing all the time. Well, it turns out to build greatness, it is boring.
Yep.
Boring, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think most people aren't looking to build greatness. They're looking to be healthy, well-rounded, and have a good time doing it.
Absolutely. And you brought up such a great point because I try to explain this to and my husband does such a great job because he works with tactical athletes who are, they are purpose driven. They know what they need to do to get to that end goal, right? Which is to be whether that's military or first responder, those guys, they have a work specific goal, right? But for me, I'm working with, like you said, general population who's, they're coming in for the day, they're excited to work out, break a sweat, see their friends, kind of get their bodies moving for the day and feel better, right, as a whole. But I'm not working with, Olympic athletes or soon to be in that space, right, who have these goals. Now, some of these guys will come and be like, oh, I want to get my first pull up or my first, heavy front squat, whatever it is. And I love those too. Those are so important for us to have. But yes, people need to understand that if you are working towards a specific goal, it can be very boring and monotonous. And you're doing a lot of heavy lifting, strength days. Like it is very planned out.
Yep, it really,
Yeah.
really is. The name of your business, Kaizen Athletics. So Kaizen
Yes.
was is one of our core values too, if you can believe it. So, tell me about how you came up with that name. I'll share a little story about how we did.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool thing to have as a conversation starter with people first off. And I love our logo too, because this is like what I'm wearing today. This is our adaptive nonprofit. This is our logo with the wheelchair that we've added into it. But our gym as a whole, so just Kaizen Athletics, it's just the red rectangular positioning. So for people that don't know who we are or what we do, it's a great conversation starter. Somebody will see the t-shirt and just walk up and be like, hey, what are those rectangles on your shirt? So I automatically I love that aspect of it. What our logo is are bumper plates. And you're basically working up to something heavy, right? So maybe you see like a 15, 25, 35, 40 pound plate. You're working up to something heavy. And that's what continuous progress looks like for us. And that's
Hmm.
what Kaizen means. So
Right.
Kaizen, as you know, is continual progress in Japanese. And so our goal is 1% better each day. Like, what are we doing daily that's going to help us lead towards whatever goals we have, right? And so when we first started our CrossFit affiliate, it was Red Flag Athletics. We had the same logo. And then after we closed that and I started Kaizen, we wanted to keep the logo but change the name. And if anyone out there, anyone listening has ever changed their business name once you have started, that's a long road because people have a tendency, you look at the Nike swoosh and you're like, oh, I know that Nike, that's Nike. Well, what if they decide to change their name? It'd be years of people trying to, catch up with that.
Generation.
Yeah, it would never happen. And so, we're small fish compared to that, of course, but the same concept. People saw our logo and it took a little bit, but now, I feel like we're a staple conversation in households here in Virginia Beach, which is really nice.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I went to, similar to you, and I run a gym. I use the EOS system, Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's Traction is the book by Wickman, and it's been a great resource. And I was going through it. I would typically go through it once a year, every December, and see how I stack up, and then formulate my plan for the next 12 months and see how it stacks versus my 3 and 5 year plan, etc. And it asks you early on, what are going to be your core values for yourself and for the gym, right? So I'm going through and I'm listing, and I got like 30, and you got to narrow it down. I narrowed it down to 6, which is probably still too many, but I don't care. And so I'm like, discipline's got to be one of them. Doing the things doing the right things all the time. But if I'm doing the right things, you still got to push a little bit to get better. Like I could be showing up every day, but I got to push a little bit. Was one of the pieces. So that's how I came up with Kaizen, because I was like, get better, 1%. What are all the synonyms? Pull out a thesaurus, right? And it says Kaizen. I'm like, well, I've heard that word before, but I just like it. It's unusual. I like the Japanese component to it, and back to Toyota, how they're always trying to get better. Well, it's funny because about a month and a half ago, I was going through one of my books, and you can see there's tons behind me, and there's tons more. I have Tony Robbins' like old book, Awaken the Giant Within, and I was just reading through this one chapter early on, and he talks about Kaizen. Well, I first read like his book a good 25 years ago, and I'm like, that must have been tucked in my head somewhere way back in the day, subconsciously, so that when I was going through that book, that traction book, like 5 years ago, on come up with the core values, it was something that was nagging at me back in my head, and I was like, it was highlighted, and it's right over there. It's highlighted, it's underlined, the definition is written out, and I was like,
Sure.
my goodness. So
It
when I
was
saw,
always there.
always there. So when I saw yours, I was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a great, like I said, it's a great conversation starter. And I think um, it was really cool when we moved into our last gym. So we've had multiple locations at this time just because, you kind of outgrow, which is nice. But my third location, I was next to a Japanese pub.
okay.
And it was really cool because it was baby Hezekiah, and then you had us next door, so everybody thought we were paired up together, but we were very opposite of each other. But it was just kind of cool to see the two cultures come together, which was fun. But we've moved on since then.
All right, so spoiler alert, don't mention this to Lee, but I'm gonna ask him the same question. How did you meet Lee?
Oh, easy. We were both lifeguards on the beach here in Virginia Beach. We were oceanfront lifeguards, which obviously I love what I do now, but that job is pretty cool. You get to get paid to sit on a lifeguard stand and be physically fit, challenge yourself, and be cognitively aware of your surroundings the entire time. So I thought it was a cool job.
Did you have like visions of David Hasselhoff driving down there in the truck and all? No.
100%. He was greased up, he was in his tanning oil. Yeah, it was really nice. So he was actually the one that introduced me to CrossFit. I came into lifeguarding when I was early 20s, and I thought I was super fit and I could run, I could swim, and then they put me through a swim test, which I failed my first time.
Dang.
And it's we all need these jobs that push us to be better, because you always think that you're one way, and then when you're actually put in the situation, you're not. And so it tested me physically in ways that I hadn't been tested. And so once I finally passed the test and I started working as a lifeguard on the beach, they would do drill with us every day. You would log, or you would, check in, and you would go to your lifeguard stand, and then as a group you would meet up and do these drills. And they exposed me to CrossFit on the beach. And I was just, and what I mean by that is, we're all doing these functional movements. We're squatting, we're deadlifting, we're pressing, all these things. But from a standpoint of, okay, I'm gonna have you now run down the beach, soft sand, a block. Then you're gonna hop into the water, run and swim 2 blocks. You're gonna come out and you're gonna do 30 air squats or 30 burpees. And then you're gonna do that 4 times, right? And I was like, oh, this is gonna be super easy. And then you're just blown away by how challenging these workouts were. And I immediately fell in love with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So he exposed me to all of those things.
You wrote down here in your homework for us that you played soccer, volleyball, basketball, but mostly rode horses, and you wrote and did it in college. Competed competitively at Randolph-Macon College. What do you miss about being on teams? Being on organized teams,
Yeah, and I think that's how I love being in the fitness space now is because it takes me back to those days on being on a team, right? I love group fitness because you get that trash talk, you get the camaraderie, you get the push, right? Where you're trying to challenge yourself, and that's what I miss so much with being on a sports team. I wish I had the time and the resources to keep doing those things, but obviously responsibilities take over at some point, and you no longer have time for it. But I feel so blessed that my parents put me through every different sport there was when we were growing up. And really, the horseback riding stuck the most. And that was so much fun for me. Um, but I just miss that you didn't really have responsibilities back then, right? You're just you miss those days. You at the moment you're like, oh, I wish I had X, Y, and Z. I wish I did this. I wish I did that. And then really just being better at being present in those moments and realizing that really those are the good days. And
right?
then you have now, monthly lease on things, you have a child, you have all these things that now require responsibility, but in the time, gosh, those were just so much fun to just get out there and run on the field and play soccer or, just be carefree in that environment. So, I look forward to putting my son through all of those things as well, making him a well-rounded athlete. So it's really cool to implement the things that I find to be very important into his life, just like my parents did for us.
You mentioned the trash talking with the CrossFitters, or even
Mhm.
on the team. And so let's say tomorrow you show up and it's fight gone bad, and you're going to do it with the group, and each person is going to get introduced. So now coming out, Emily Throckmorton, what's your walkout song going to be?
So this is such a great question. So I'm the adaptive athlete director for Soldiers to Sidelines. So this is an organization we give back to military and their families. It's incredible, and they always ask me what my walkout song is going to be, and I want to say that I feel like it was Beyonce in some capacity. My husband calls me the queen bee when I have to make decisions for the gym or putting on a show. He calls me the queen bee. So I want to say it's Beyonce in some capacity. What song that is, I don't know, but I feel like I have that strong feminine Beyonce in me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So everything always evolves, and no one starts off thinking, "Hey, man, I'm 10 years old. I'm gonna get into CrossFit," or "I'm 25 years old. I'm gonna own a gym," or "I'm 30 years old. I'm gonna own a gym." But also, I'm gonna add in the adaptive piece. Like we added our foundation, I think maybe 5 years ago, where we do some things, but nothing with the adaptive athletes. And you don't know what you don't know, right? Some people don't. They're not introduced to being a rower or a weightlifter until later in life. They did something else, right? Talk about how you guys evolve from working with the general population, and now you decide, you know what, we want to set up a nonprofit and we work with adaptive athletes, and why?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Adaptive athletes, anything. If you guys look at my Instagram or Facebook, I put so much of me working with these guys because I find it to be I don't want to say inspiring because that just kind of gets lost, the more I say it, but it's pushing that no excuse mentality that I believe in so firmly, right? So, every time I would say since I'm a young kid playing sports, whenever I got injured, I would always find a way to keep working out or keep, playing sports, whatever it was. I was like, okay, there's plenty I can still do. So this was kind of always in the back of my head. I had the privilege in 2020 of working out with a handful of wounded warriors. And for those that are unfamiliar with this term, it's individuals that have suffered some sort of traumatic impairment that has, or traumatic injury that has left them with this impairment. So whether that's an amputation, whether that's a stroke, whether that's a spinal cord injury, whether that's a traumatic brain injury, I was working out with these guys at this 24-hour hero workout that they were hosting at this local gym. And This is 2020, so unsophisticated. They had chains wrapped around their upper body, wrapped around a barbell doing deadlifts next to me. He was upper extremity loss. I had an amputee that was a below the knee, and he had a blade on, and he was running and doing box jumps with me. And these guys were just showing me that no excuse mentality existed even more. And from there, I was like, well, why doesn't there doesn't seem to be a facility that works with these guys. Now, keep in mind that these guys that I was working out with, they were wounded warriors. So their mentality is a little bit different. They're prior military, they're type A, they're going to get it done. The general population, there wasn't a what's next for these guys. So these guys, if they have an injury that causes them to have this sort of long-term impairment, they didn't have a gym to go to, a place to have fitness, a place for them to have that camaraderie, the stuff that you and I love when we go to a gym, right? And so right there and then I decided that I wanted to open up at the time, I didn't really know about the nonprofit world. I just created this program where guys could come in for free and I would help them regain their independence again through functional fitness. And some of these guys were told they would never walk again, or they would never be able to do a pull up again or deadlift again. And I would show these guys, hey, we can still do all of those things. It's just going to look a lot different than what you're used to seeing. And from there, the program grew to where I got my foot in the door with local healthcare providers, with PTs, OTs, with the medical world, which is so crazy to say because I fully expected them to kind of push back a little bit to be like, you're outside of your scope of practice. Like, this is a little too much for these guys. But instead, it was the complete opposite, where these guys were like, we are so thrilled to have your program. We will send you all of our patients.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was huge because my background is fitness. I don't have anything in the healthcare. I'm not a PT, I'm not an OT. I don't have any, big letters and names behind my name. And so for them to trust me with their patients was a huge thing. And then from there, I started a nonprofit 501c3 where, people could donate to our program to keep these guys coming in. So now we have, fast forward to today, we have 2 classes a day offered to them completely free. We get equipment for them they may need. They get coaching. They get adaptive coaches, adaptive volunteers that help them out. But really the big thing is providing these classes for them. We also put on workshops for mental health, for art therapy, for, physical therapy if they want dry needling or scraping. Like, we want to just bring all of these implements, all these subject matter experts to these guys so that they can get all of the love and support through this process, because no one wants to go through this alone.
You
That's the
know,
big thing.
that is awesome. I love that. A lot of reasons. One is just they're still just regular people, and they're still, if you seem to be similar to me in that, like, my calling is to get people to build the best versions of themselves. God wants me to do that for other folks, so they, to do that to glorify themselves and God, right? So they're just regular people that walk in. They have something a little different about them. And then I got people that are in my gym that would be considered just regular Joes, but maybe we had one that had breast cancer, another one had a stroke, or my wife, who's absolutely, I guess you would say, fine, but has almost no meniscus left and an ACL tear, so her knee is, not great, so she has to do things differently. And so now, if you have nothing below the knee, it's even more different, but it's still just doing things differently. So those that come in the type A's, like you said, they're already driven. Hey, I want to get back to some things. I want to create some things, create this new life. In 3 different scenarios, they all seem to have a common thread here on the flip side. I'll have athletes that were like, well, when I was 30, when I was doing CrossFit, I could do all this. Now I can't. Now I feel deflated. I don't want to train anymore because I can't. I'm not what I once was, even though you're coming up on 50 years old. Or I'll have athletes that were, hey, I played college, whatever, volleyball, football, basketball. I used to lift, train, be this fast. I'm not that anymore. Since I'm not that anymore, I don't care. And there's some people that have been injured or lost a limb or had a stroke that they feel so defeated that, I'm not what I once was as a soldier or a sailor. I don't even want to bother anymore. So in
Sure.
all three instances, they weren't what they were before. They aren't what they were before. They're always looking in the rear view mirror versus what's in front of them. When you come across those folks, you have any success changing their mind?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say mindset is 100% of what it is. So we have that conversation when they even step foot into our facility. It's, checking your ego, understand that this is the phase of life that you're in,
Almost.
and we're going to meet you where you are, right? And yes, that can be really hard. We work with a guy that was previously a professional baseball player, and now he's a spinal cord injury that's paralyzed from the nipple line down. So you could imagine his mindset has to be addressed first thing, because he's going to want to do what he did before. And when he can't, it's going to lead to this mental health side of things that we're going to need some extra help with, right? We have a kid that was injured very, very young. He was an aspiring gymnast that was going to be going to the Olympics. And then he got injured doing gymnastics at the high. He was doing the high bar, fell wrong, landed on his neck, and now he's paralyzed from the waist down. So yes, I would say the mindset piece is huge. That mental health piece is huge. We have started implementing more of bringing in mental health professionals into our facility to help these guys work through some of that trauma, because that's really outside of my scope of practice as a strength and conditioning coach. These are important things to have at your facility. I think that we need to start implementing these as a standard when you have your gym or your facility. I think that it's so important to have somebody under your roof that you trust and that you can send your athletes to, that you can, use that resource. Um, we are expanding our gym a little bit more, where I'm going to bring in these professionals into our space, to where these guys can have full access to somebody that is dealing with mental health right there and then, right? So instead of saying, hey, go see somebody 30 minutes away, you're going to have to make an appointment, do this, this, and this, we're making it so that they can literally wheel across to the next building and they can go see somebody if they're having a bad day. And I think that is such a huge piece to build your community and to gain everybody's trust, because these guys are going through so much when it comes to, our guys call it brain therapy when they go to see somebody. But I think that's such an important piece for these guys to find clarity and to understand that what they're doing now is going to look a lot different than what they did before. So different. But
You know,
that's where we come in.
that's beautiful. You know, I don't know if it's any different with any other person. It does start with mindset. There's the mindset of, can I even do CrossFit? Will I look silly? Will I look stupid? And for the guys, it's always just a big measure and dick thing where, hey, what do you bench, bro? Do I look weak next to you? And a lot of times with the ladies, it's like, well, I'm not going to move correctly. I'm going to look silly. So it's always the ego that gets in the way. And Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy, is pretty helpful. If you can, I could try to connect you with Kyle Maynard. I don't know if you heard of him. He's episode 51 with us. When he was born, his arms quit growing at the elbow. So no forearms, no hands. His legs quit growing at the knee. I think there's some semblance of a foot on the bottom of one of his legs, but both his legs don't have, tibia, fibia, and feet, right? And fast forward, I'm talking ESPY award winner. I'm talking fighting jiu-jitsu professionally,
That's cool.
nationally ranked in high school in wrestling, publishes a bestseller book at 18, and swims a Great Barrier Reef and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, 19,000 plus feet, in a bear crawl, because that's what he has, his four limbs.
That's incredible.
And so his book is called No Excuses. And just that episode 51, if people ask about, hey, what's a good episode? I play football or basketball. I'm like, whatever, man. Listen to episode 51.
Yeah.
Listen to this guy, and
Yep.
you'll learn what it really means to push,
And
and
that, yeah.
keep finding a way forward.
Yeah. And it really puts things in perspective. It truly does. When you're having a bad day and you're like, wow, I don't feel like going to the gym today. And then you realize that, maybe one of my guys just showed up and he was doing pull-ups in today's workout and he's paralyzed. And you're like, all right, I can
Right,
go today. Right.
right.
So it's just all about perspective and realizing that working out is a privilege, right? It's not something that we're all able to do. So yes, make the effort, go to the gym, work out, eat well, sleep well, like do all the things, because it's it's not until people lose those things right? Until they're like, wow, I really wish that I had taken better care of myself, or I really wish that I had, stopped drinking, or maybe I slept better. It doesn't hit you until something bad happens, which we are all seconds away from something bad happening to us, and we lose all of those things, right? So if you can go into whatever it is, whether that's an injury, or whether it's acute or long term, right? If you can go into those scenarios being strong, being healthy, being mentally stable, your outcome is going to be 10,000 times better than somebody that, has decided that that wasn't important to them until that thing happened to them.
You go back to the mindset piece. I think if we had some kid playing football and they have a bad play, they would say, short memory, shake it off. What can you do now going forward, right?
Mhm.
On the next play. It's the same deal. Someone walks in, hey, where are you at today? You're 30 years old, you're out of shape, you never touched a barbell, you get the mom bod, dad bod deal, or you come back, and you got PTSD and you in a spine injury. Just there is something that we can do going forward. And once you start comparing yourself to what you could be going forward, then you're
Mhm.
probably a little bit happier. If you're always comparing yourself to someone else, something else, or a different time when you were something, 10 years ago. I don't ever find joy in that. You ever ask them, hey, do you ever feel happy comparing yourself to that? They're like, no. All right, so we're not doing that. We're gonna try to and so that whole Kaizen principle is you take what you have and let's just try to get it a little bit better from here. Not what woulda, coulda, shoulda been. Because my
Sure.
my God, that's everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda been. Um, you also mentioned that, some things you like to talk about, gym ownership, entrepreneurship. It's not always roses, right? COVID happens. They got problems with coaches or athletes. There's just life. And the great thing about having a community or a family is that there's a lot of great things that come with it and a lot of shitty things that come with it, right? You love your family, but some people you're happy to see them leave after Thanksgiving, right? Talk about some of the ups and downs, running your own business and how you evolve from just that aspect.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not somebody that wants to spend their days seeing their friends and family every day too. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. And you kind of have to go into it wanting those things, right? You also need to be the type of person that wakes up in the morning and you think, all right, how can I be better? How can I be a better leader? How can I make better decisions so that everything runs smoothly, right? You kind of have to wake up with that mindset of like, I'm excited to do what I do today. There's no waking up and being like, all right, well, what can I do today as far as like, do I have time to go out to lunch with my friend or do this or that? Those things don't exist. It's you wake up 24/7 and that business or company has to be what's on the forefront of your brain. And I think for a lot of people that will turn them off, right? Because they want to be able to sometimes work and then come home and shut it off and spend time doing other things, right? So this entrepreneurship world is hard, but it's also the most rewarding because you get to see something that you're so passionate about come to life. You can see it change people's lives for the better. You can make a difference in somebody's life, whether they are healthier, whether they're living longer, whether they feel better. You get these positive affirmations from athletes saying, wow, I was able to pick up my kids today and I had no back pain, or I was able to carry these groceries into the house without having somebody to help me, right? I'm 82 years old. Whatever it is, you get to be that person that gets to hear all these positive things. Now, there are negative things that come with that. There's, I wish there was like different programming, or I wish the music was better, or, all these things, right? There's always going to be some positive, there's always going to be negatives, but my goal is to always stay in the middle to where you try to make everybody happy. And I know that's not always conducive, but that's how I try to live, where especially when it comes to our members and our athletes, I try to make everybody happy, but you also have to make very hard decisions sometimes in order to be a leader, right? And that's also a skill that takes time. My husband's really great at being a leader, so I try to learn from him as much as I can. um but, the days in and day out, I really enjoy what I do. And I really enjoy making a difference in our community and, showing people that taking care of yourself and working out can be so fun. and it can be something that brings the community together. And I honestly wouldn't trade that for anything. So, when I first started, I was working, 16 different jobs. I was trying to figure out my life. I didn't know where it was going. And I'll be honest with you, most coaches I do an internship with, or support group or whatever, these things that, they need some help and guidance along the way. I tell them, like, the real money in this business only comes when you own your own space. When you are working for somebody else and you're making $20 or $30 or $40 an hour coaching class, the long term of that is hopefully working you towards being a gym owner, because that's really truly when you can actually make a living. And you can have something that you're proud of, right? And so when, I first started, I was coaching, maybe making like 19, $20 an hour coaching classes, and that's just not conducive, right? And so I kind of always knew that I wanted to have my own space, but I had a lot of support along the way, and I think that that's important. So I try to give that to other people that are in similar situations, because it's fun. It's a lot of fun, right? But you have to want it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. The enjoyment component has to will make it sustainable. And there's a lot of work and painful things, but some of those things you actually have to like. You have to like the conflict a little bit, because there's growth from the conflict. If you don't like that much, then you're going to end up hating it so much, then it won't be sustainable. And I would agree, if you're running the business, then you got a shot at making money. But I know plenty of CrossFit gyms that have folded and gone under.
sure.
I would also say that if you actually own the building, the physical building, then you have an even better chance of making money, because if you ever sell it and someone wants the building and they don't want to do CrossFit, they might still buy it. Or
Sure.
otherwise, you got to sell the gym and someone wants the building and your business. But I had a question. You said, you're going 24/7 all the time, and there hasn't been a vacation. I've been running my gym 13 years. There hasn't been a vacation I went on that I did not bring my laptop, or I didn't answer a phone call or some emails, or a lot of times, depending on when I do payroll, I'll be doing it on vacation, because when you don't pay people, they get cranky, as they should.
Well, funny story about that. I actually was going into labor, sitting on a yoga ball with my laptop on the desk in front of me. I was moving coaches around, fixing classes, because I was actively going into labor. So if that puts in perspective too, you just you make it work, and you work hard. But yeah, it's so fun because you have freedom to do as you please. You have freedom to, create the classes you want. You have freedom to try new things. You have freedom to run it how you feel like the culture is. And I think that there's something so special with that, is, your ability to make it yours, right? Versus somebody else's methodology, which is fun. And everybody, I have no issue with a gym being down the street from us, or a gym doing something similar to us. I think that there's so many people out there that can, benefit from everybody. And at the end of the day, people are going to find a gym that works for them specifically. And I just feel like the culture kind of really mirrors what Lee and I both believe in, and we have made it such a special place that that's what keeps people coming back, is they love us, right? They love the idea that we bring the community together, and it's, mom and pop. I think that that's been a lot of fun for us.
Another point that you made, about constantly working, when you're lifting weights, you're not getting stronger. You're tearing down your muscles. You get better and stronger when you're recovering. And if you're running your brain as a gym owner all the time, I can tell you it could be challenging, where you shoot your nervous system with all the to-dos and all the
Mhm.
questions, and have to be creative or problem solving. If you don't decompress a little bit, cortisol gets all out of whack, weight gain is a lot, more prevalent, stress comes along. If you don't handle it, figure out a way to decompress as a business owner or a coach or an athlete, then also not very sustainable. And you're definitely not getting the best results unless you can find a way to unwind and recover as an owner
Mhm.
and business, as an entrepreneur. How do you deal with that, with your own recovery as an athlete, but also as an owner, because there's a lot going on and you can't burn the candle at both ends forever.
Sure. Oof. I don't do a great job at it. I'll be
Okay.
honest. And I
That's
also have
fine.
a I
All
also
right.
have a 20-month-old, so I wouldn't I my sleep has been very, very,
Rough, shitty,
rough. Yeah, it's been really, really
inconsistent.
rough. Um, but I also feel like I am now stronger than I ever have been as far as, like, my physical athleticism. I feel like I am 10 times stronger, and I probably would say that because I'm eating a lot more. I eat so much more, especially with nursing him as much as I do. I think maybe before I was under eating quite a bit and doing a lot of physical activity, where now I eat a lot more, I train a lot smarter. So if I know that, I'm having a competition come up or a race or a run, I take recovery days completely off. And in the past, I probably wouldn't have done that. I think my mental health is tied to movement as well.
Usually.
But I wish I had a better answer, but honestly, I'm not the best at it. I feel like if I'm sitting down and trying to relax, I should be doing something to grow the business.
Oh, wow.
So that is that yeah, and understand too, I'm 32 years old, had the business going since about 2018. And so I'm like, I'm in it early enough to where I need to find a good system in place. And so if there's listeners here that want to share advice for me, I'm sure there's wonderful books about it, but I'm at the stage right now where, I'll check my phone in the middle of the night. I check it first thing in the morning. I'm responding to emails or text as soon as they come through, because that's just where I am right now with my phase of life. I feel like I have to be on it all the time,
Sure.
and I know that that's not the answer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but that's being transparent, right? Being
Sure. Yeah.
real about.
No, 100%. I get that. My whole background is finance and investments, and I did 15 years of that. JP Morgan, MBA, and worked with hedge funds, high net worth individuals. So when I started the gym, I got my certifications. I interned at another gym while I was at JP Morgan, but picking publicly traded companies is completely different than running a small business with people that are, brand new, right? So big learning curve. And I was blessed that some of the people that partnered with me to help get the business going are private equity fund managers. They work with businesses and they infuse capital to get those businesses to run healthier and make a profit off it. And they're much bigger than mine, 500,000 in revenue to 500 million. These guys. And both of them worked with EOS, that entrepreneur operating system with that book Traction, and their business coaches. And they said there was I should have asked them this from the get-go, but I didn't. It took 2 or 3 years when I went back to them and asked for some advice, and they told me about that. And it says, yeah, it's not that you need a goal. It said you don't have a system in place. And so if you're answering emails and phone calls, you put a system in place when you're doing it so it's not as inefficient. Them hammering me on that was a blessing because I was unaware. I didn't know those things about running a small business. What is my marketing plan and how's the calendar come out, and blah, blah, blah. So, and it's not at early on as a business owner, it's all you. Later, you want to get to the point where you're asking the question, who, not how. Who else is going to do this for me? Not how can I do everything? Because
Sure.
if I were on any team, like if I were running the ball, I need someone to block. If I were blocking, someone else is running the ball behind me. And you want to put people in place that are awesome at things. So whatever you're awesome at is where we want to leverage you. And
Sure.
whatever you're not good at, we don't want you working there as much. So um, we would I would go to a cabin and lock myself in there for about 2 days, with almost no cell service. And I'm just going to rip my business apart. And the annual meeting was like 3 days, but then once a quarter was like two. And I'm like, all right, we're going to go through again. What are our uniques? What are we good at? What's our coaching staff look like? Where do they need to get smarter? What does the physical gym facility need to have done differently? Look at the
Sure.
programming, the marketing, the sales. So it's my time away that I actually get a shot at making it better. And then for the next 3 months, I'm in the lab essentially taking in all the data of how the whole thing's running, the athletes or the business, and then try to adjust again and constantly readjust. But it was years before I even tried to start doing something like that.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and I will definitely see some of that because I do feel like, when I have a day off, like, let's say on a Sunday, I feel like I can get a lot of work done.
Sure.
And I'm very blessed. I have an incredible team of coaches that are both adaptive coaches and for my able-bodied athletes. And I also have a board of directors for my adaptive
Beautiful.
program.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
So those are things that we've implemented in the last couple years, and that's been so helpful. I have my evenings to come home. I have the ability to bounce ideas off of different coaches and the board of directors. So I feel like we're making, small movements there, but it's really
Beautiful.
hard when you see this as like your baby, right? And it's really hard for you to, of course, no one's going to ever treat it exactly the same that you would. And anybody will say that. But if you are a great leader and you set expectations and you treat your staff or your coaches really well, they will want to mirror what you've created.
They will.
And yeah. And so I think it takes time, and hopefully I'll get better at it, and I'll be in your shoes eventually. And I think a 2-day getaway would be nice.
Yeah. I'm a bit older. I'm 50. You're only 32. And there's a lot of things I've already see you. If you see me looking away while you're talking, it's because I'm taking notes over here. Because there's plenty of things, I like learning from everybody
Yeah,
else.
same.
Yep. How about you in your physical training? Are you still in a fight about something? Now you just had a baby, but there's something that you compete at, whether it's a powerlifting meet or a Tough Mudder event or a CrossFit competition. Do you have something on the calendar for yourself?
Yeah, I've had a couple of wild months, I would say. I didn't truly feel like I was back into my skin until about 9 months postpartum. Like I feel like it took me that long to get through. I went into my pregnancy very strong. I worked out my whole pregnancy, and then afterwards, I gave it the time it deserved. The concept of bouncing back and all this stuff is just somebody that is in the strength and conditioning world laughs at, because that's not reality. You don't bounce back. You come back stronger, but you have to work on it, right? It's not something that you're like, "Oh, I'm really excited to lose weight." I was excited to eat more and gain muscle, right? So and to get back to all the things that, I necessarily, wasn't that fast at when I was pregnant. But the last couple months, let's see, I did an online CrossFit competition. It's called the Fittest on the Coast, and it was a month long. Every week there was a different online workout to do, and I placed in the top. What was I? 13th. I placed 13th out of almost 400 women in the
Whoa.
East Coast. Yeah, so I was really proud of that. So that was in October, and so now I get to go in person to a competition in Charleston in February, which is very exciting. And then let's see, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon the week after.
That's in DC.
Yes, sir.
That's the only one I would ever consider doing. I've done about a half dozen half marathons. I don't really, I'd rather be, I was, for most of my CrossFit world, I was just a strength athlete where I can coach CrossFit, but the strongman and powerlifting. So I was much, much bigger, 320, I'm
Sure.
320 pounds. To do anything distance like that, man, oh,
It's a
but
lot on the joints.
it is a lot. It's a lot in the joints, right? It really is. So my favorite conditioning is typically pushing sleds or swimming.
There you go.
However, the Marine Corps marathon's in DC, and all you do is run around town looking at all the different monuments.
Yeah, it was
So
really cool. I mean,
that's
there
got to
was
be cool.
40,000 people. It was
Yeah.
it was wild. And I pushed my baby the whole time too.
Oh, dang. So it wasn't hard enough.
No, it was a really bonding time, between the two of us, and that was my first time ever running marathon, and then I was able to do it with him, so it was pretty cool. A memory I'll never forget. And then I competed in a high rocks the weekend after.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it's been
Jeez.
it's been a lot. But that's the kind of training I enjoy. I enjoy training to where I can do any of those things, right? At any point in time. Like I'm not a specialist. I'm not like, one goal specifically, but I like the ability to say, yeah, I want to do this or I want to do that or I want to try that. Not being the best or the fastest or fittest, but you're able to hold your own. And
Gotcha.
that's how I coach my athletes.
Awesome. As we're winding up here, when you're training, what do you like to listen to?
Um, let's see. I would say mashups. That's my jam. Like
Okay.
anything that like blends. I apologize. Hold on. We live in a huge military town, of course.
That's awesome.
constant jets overhead. But yeah, I would say mashups. They really get me going.
Okay. What's a vacation adventure for you and your husband for a week? No responsibilities, no child with you, to a place you guys have never been. Where's the place you guys would like to go?
We love Iceland, and I would say with our son. We are not big on, hey, we want date night and we're gonna leave you, with grandma. We love having him involved in everything that we do, that I would love to take him there. We've been to Iceland twice now. It's actually a huge CrossFit country as well, or island. I think it, did I misspeak? I
It's
think
both.
it's
It's both.
both. Okay, I'll take it. But it's the most beautiful, quiet. You can hear yourself think. But pretty much every little town that you go to, there's another CrossFit gym to drop into. So, and there's, the hiking's beautiful. We actually went to, it's called Mount 𝗟𝗏, but it's a mile straight up on this little mountaintop. And back in the day, they brought the I think they had the CrossFit Games there, or regionals or something. And the workout was them, they had to run up that hill as fast as they could.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we did it, and it was very humbling. It was very hard. But if, we go someplace, we want it to be outdoors where we are physically challenging ourselves. And, now that we've been traveling with our son, putting him in the hiking backpack and going up a trail, like, that's for us. We're not ones to, well, maybe my husband, he would love to sit by a little bar, a little tiki hut in Jamaica. But for me, it's more so getting out of nature and just being, in peace and quiet. That's more where I am.
How about a favorite sports movie?
Um, oof, oh, favorite sports movie. I loved the last one they did. It was about Michael Jordan, but it was more so about like his contracts that his mom helped him with. Was that Swoosh?
Yeah, so I was on maybe Prime or Hulu, and Matt Damon was in it, and it was talking about him bringing him over to Nike for the first time. That
Yes.
was a good story. Yeah, it really
That was
was.
a really cool story, and that was something I didn't really know how involved the mom was. It was less about him, more so like how did the mom handle it? And now that I am a mom, I feel like that's, it's our responsibility to put them in these amazing opportunities and be their advocate. So I really like that one.
How about a sport to watch?
Not baseball.
Okay.
I have found that to be, and it's so funny because like I said, I work with a guy who was previously, he played for the Cardinals. And he was like, I told him how badly it tortured me to sit and watch baseball. And he goes, Emily, none of us like watching baseball. We love playing baseball, but they didn't enjoy watching it. But I would say soccer is very enjoyable for me because it's fast paced. The amount of athleticism that it takes to be on that level is incredible. So I love watching soccer.
How about an athlete to watch? Any sport. Could be current, could be dead. Doesn't matter.
Need to watch. I guess Messi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. You got a book
Keeping with my
recommendation?
soccer theme.
Sure. Do you have a book recommendation?
Well, of course, the one that you talked about earlier, I did not finish it, but the James
Atomic
Clear
Atomic
Atomic
Habits?
Habits. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a, the I haven't finished that one completely, but that's a great place to start. I think that's something that's been on my list for a while now. Um, and then Profit First. Have you read that?
I have it on my list. There's a few of them, several books behind me I haven't gotten to yet, but they're in the queue.
Yeah. If you're a
Yeah.
business owner, that's a good book.
How about whether it's real life or fictional, a superhero and a supervillain?
Um,
Like real life could be somebody you look up to, obviously, or it could be someone that's a comic book or a movie. My villain is
Thor.
Thor, right? He's cool.
Yeah, he's cool. And he went from fat to athletic, He was able to get himself together. So yeah, he's a good one.
How about a villain? Like
No idea.
mine's Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. I liked him. A lot of people say the Joker for Batman.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one.
If you were lifting tomorrow, you can max out anything. What's your favorite go-to lift?
Oof, I love Bulgarian split squats.
Wow. Okay.
I know most people do not. It's one of my favorite to program, and because I see such positive adaptations from them. Um,
Yep.
I,
Especially
I
especially being athletic.
Oh yeah, if you want to be athletic, if you want to be strong and powerful, Bulgarian split squats. I for the first time yesterday did a 70-pound dumbbell for 6 reps on each leg.
Beautiful.
And I was pretty proud of that. And my husband was like, "You're gonna rip your tendon off your bone." And meanwhile, he was using 15-pound dumbbells. So I give him plenty of lip about it. Yeah, you need to talk to him about that. He needs some progressive overload. But yeah,
Yo,
most
yo. All right. Do you have a quote for us?
just keep showing up for yourself every day. And um that stuck with me a lot when I was first postpartum. I had a newborn baby and I had a full gym to run and coaches to class, and I had a 5 a.m. class that I had to coach every single day. And I remember sitting in the bed, crying before I have to go because you're just, you're sleep deprived. You got all the excuses in the book, right? And I would just say, I just got to keep showing up every single day. And I think if you just tell yourself that, and I read something the other day, or heard it, but it was talking about parenting, and it was saying, if you tell yourself every day that I can do this hard thing, you just keep giving yourself these positive
Affirmations.
words, right? The next thing you know, your child's going to be running around the house saying, I can do this. I can do this, even when it's hard, right? And I think that that's so important for us to be a role model for our kids to say, and that's why I enjoy doing the marathon with my son, or we did a half marathon this past Sunday. All these hard things that most people be like, yeah, I can't do it, or I got my kid, this and that. Bring them with you. Do the hard things with them and show them that they can do these things too. So
Yep.
that's my quote.
Love it. Where can people find you?
So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, of course, all the big social media platforms. Kaizen Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
My nonprofit is Kaizen Adaptive Training. And then my personal is just going to be 𝗦𝗰𝗶𝗹 Throckmorton, and you can find us and on YouTube as well under Kaizen Athletics, but mostly on Instagram. Watch our athletes in action. I mean, especially our adaptive guys. I just put up a video today of one of our guys.
Lost her at the end. Hope not. All right. So not sure maybe we lost her or not, but Emily Throckmorton, outstanding guest. You can tell from the energy alone, really passionate about getting people better, tons of drive, and it looks like tons of energy, which, in my opinion, the energy and the juice is one of the pieces that you got to have when you're working with people and get them to move forward, right? Because they're going to do some hard things that are painful. So she definitely brings that. So get a hold of her. Kaizen Adaptive Training is her website. And always to get a hold of us, info@athlete-builder.com. And we'll keep answering your questions, your emails, and send them our way because we keep wanting to make an impact. So until next time, everybody, we'll see you.